Morning, Jason. How's the old conditional access rollout going?
Honestly, really good. Our 365 locked down.
Oh, Jason, that's great to hear. Did you have any issues?
No. Well, apart from Charles.
What about Charles?
Well, his iPhone won't open Outlook anymore, and his MacBook, that's completely locked him out of Teams.
Jason, I'm dictating confidential client emails over a landline like it's 1983. I've got to be honest with you. I'd rather have hackers crawling all over my tenant than this. If this is not rectified immediately, I shall draft proceedings myself against our own IT department.
I was just following the golden rule. If in doubt, block it out.
Jason, this is why conditional access needs some careful planning. Look, done right, it's going to protect your business. Done wrong, well, you know what happens when it's done wrong.
To be honest, Jonathan, I could do with some guidance.
Fine, let's get into today's video because it's all about conditional access. Let's go. So, what exactly went wrong there? Well, Jason set up some conditional access policies without a plan. And the result? Well, hackers are blocked. But so is Charles, his iPhone, his MacBook, and most of his team. You see, that's the danger. Conditional access is one of the most powerful tools in Microsoft 365. Done right, it protects your business from password theft, risky sign-ins, and unmanaged devices. Done wrong? Well, you've seen it. Chaos. In this video, I'm going to show you how conditional access really works. I'm going to show you some baseline policies that every business should have, how to customize them for different types of users, and how to safely handle exceptions with things like temporary access passes. But let's start with the basics. Think of conditional access like a nightclub bouncer. You show your ID at the door. That ID is your username and password. But before you let in, the bouncer checks. Are you on the guest list? Are you dressed right? Are you over 18? Conditional access does the same thing as the nightclub bouncer. After you log in, it decides whether to hand you a token to access your apps and data, based on the rules that you set up in conditional access. Now let's take a brief look at where to access conditional access in your Microsoft 365. Okay, I'm logged into my test Microsoft 365 tenancy. Now, in case you didn't know where to find conditional access, let me show you. You go to Admin Centers and you go to Identity, and that opens the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. And then under Entra ID, you can go right down here to Conditional Access. And this is the Conditional Access Overview page. If I go to Policies here, you will see the policies that I've got on my tenancy. Now, there are a couple of ways to create conditional access policies. There's a new policy, and there's a new policy from template, or you can upload a policy file. Let's just talk about new policy from template first. Microsoft bundle a number of policies, if you click on all, that you can just click on, review, and create. Okay, it does all the kind of config for you. This is okay if you're getting started, but I do recommend that you actually manually set up your policies. And we're going to talk about that in today's video. So going back to conditional access again. I will click on create new policy. And you can see here, look, firstly, what is the name of the policy? I will give this a name, something like this. All users, all apps require MFA. Now, in the next section of the video, we are going to talk about naming your conditional access policies. But for now, that is my conditional access policy name. I then look at users. Okay, I can select all users from there. It gives us a prompt here about locking ourselves out. Okay, you don't want to lock your admin accounts out, for example. And then the target resources. So I can choose all resources here. We've got some network conditions, we've got some conditions, and then we've got the access controls. So I can click on here, and I can say grant access, require multi-factor authentication. So notice how I've targeted specific users, specific apps, and then I've set the grant controls like requiring multi-factor authentication. And that's the structure of every policy. Firstly, who it applies to. Secondly, what apps or actions it actually covers. And thirdly, what conditions are required. That is the basis of every policy. What I can do now, I can enable it, I can put it into report only, or I can create it in off mode. Okay, so that is a brief overview of conditional access just to get us started. Okay, so that's the foundation. We know that conditional access is the bouncer standing between your users and your apps. Next, we're going to move on and set up our 5 core baseline policies that I recommend you set up. But before we do, I just want to thank today's video sponsor, who is CoreView. As you know, in today's video, we're talking about conditional access for Microsoft 365, and we're taking a look at how you can go and implement it. As you're going to see in a moment, we're going to be using the tools available in Microsoft 365 and Entra, and sometimes it can be quite complex to get it right. Also, when you have set it all up, it can be difficult to see that you're consistently enforcing conditional access the way you want it to be. So that is where CoreView comes in. CoreView is a specialist Microsoft 365 cyber resilience platform. The CoreView platform gives you a playbook of security and identity policies that you can use to ensure that every Microsoft 365 account, user, and service account has a conditional access policy. CoreView gives you a dashboard so you can view, manage, and report on identity security, including conditional access policies, even across multiple tenants. Plus, when you've got everything set up the way you want, it has a configuration manager that you can use to continuously monitor the configuration for any changes, any accidental drift, or even malicious tampering. Do you want to know more about CoreView? Check out the link in the description. So now back to our content. I want to talk about 5 baseline policies that I recommend every business sets up first. And before we do, let's quickly talk about naming. Because if you name your conditional access policies, policy 1, policy 2, policy 3, you're in for a world of pain. Most tenants that I see usually have vague naming policies, like policy 1, policy 2, policy 3. Or they might have 50 policies, where the name of the policy doesn't actually match what the policy does. So here is my very simple conditional access naming policy. Number 1, who does the policy apply to? Number 2, what does the policy apply to? And number 3, what's the condition? So basically, it's who, what, condition. For example, you could have a policy called admins, all apps, require MFA. And the most important thing is that you stick to your naming policy. This consistency will save you hours of troubleshooting later if you run into problems. Now let's move on to creating these 5 baseline policies. But before I do, just a quick note. The 5 policies that I'm about to show you are not the end goal. They're simply a baseline, a starting point to cover the most common risks. Things like stolen passwords, old protocols that don't support MFA, rogue device joins, obvious risky logins, and sneaky overflows that attackers love. So if you only deploy these 5 baselines, you're not finished. But what you will do is raise the security floor instantly and give you a safe foundation to build on, which we might well be doing later in this video. So think of this as level 1 of conditional access, a secure starting point, not the final destination. Let's go. Okay, the first conditional access baseline policy that we're going to create is to require strong MFA. Now, earlier in the video, I showed you me setting up a policy. I didn't actually create it. But what I did is I targeted all users, all apps, and required them to use MFA. Now, note the word that I've missed out, strong MFA. Let me explain what I mean a little bit more. So if I go to authentication methods, you can see that MFA could be any of these. It could be the Microsoft Authenticator app. It could be passkeys, which are really good. Unfortunately, it could be SMS, and it could be voice calls, and it could be email OTP. Now, things like that aren't very secure anymore. Even though they're better than just using a username and password, they're still not ideal for MFA. So in Microsoft 365, it has something called Authenticator strengths, okay? We've got a few here. So multi-factor authentication means any of these. So we've got SMS, voice, okay? This is too weak. We've also got phish-resistant MFA, and I think for all users, this could be quite strong. So my advice here is to create something called new authentication strength. And we're going to create our own custom one. I'm going to give this a name, modern MFA. I'm going to choose Windows Hello for Business, passkeys, Microsoft Authenticator, temporary access pass, which we're going to discuss later in the video, and also password and Microsoft Authenticator. Those are the forms of MFA that are a bit better than using SMS. So you notice I'm not going to tick any of these. Click on Next. Just gives me a review, and then I can create my authentication strength, which appears here. What I can now do is go to Conditional Access. I can create new policy. I will give this a name, something like this. All users, all apps require strong MFA, not just require MFA. Okay? I will target all users. I'm going to exclude the account that I'm using at the moment, my admin account. I'm going to talk more about that later in the video, but for now, I don't want to get locked out. The target resources, we're going to target all resources for this. And then where it says access controls grant, before I selected require multi-factor authentication. But this time I'm going to select require authentication strength. Okay. And from the drop down, you can see my modern MFA is listed here. So I can choose that. I can click on select. I can switch this policy straight to on, and I can create that policy. Okay. If I go to policies now, quick refresh, and there's my policy. Okay, let's create our second baseline policy. We'll give this a name. Okay, all users, legacy authentication clients, block access. So what are we doing here? We're blocking legacy authentication protocols. Things like POP, IMAP, and some older exchange protocols don't support multi-factor authentication, okay? So that means they're a bit of a gift to attackers. So we need to switch them off unless we've got a very specific legacy system that still needs them. Hopefully you don't, okay? We'll target all users. Again, I will exclude myself from this. Click on here, click on select. This time we want to go to conditions. And we want to go to client apps, okay? You can see here, look, modern authentication, legacy authentication. So we're going to target these two here. So we'll keep these selected. Click on done. Grant controls. This time, block, okay? So all users, we're targeting those legacy authentication protocols, and we're blocking them. Quick switch on, create that policy. Let's create our third baseline policy. We'll give this a name. Okay, this is all users, device registration, require MFA. What's this then? Well, we're trying to protect device registration and joining devices to Microsoft Entra. So if someone has a stolen password, you don't want them adding any rogue laptops into your tenant. So what we're saying here is we're requiring MFA when a device is registered or joined. Okay, it's a sensible policy to have. This time we'll go to users, all users. We'll just exclude mine. There we go. Click on select. This time in target, we're not selecting any of these, but we're clicking on the drop down here. User actions, register or join devices. We can kick this into here. We can just require multi-factor authentication if you want, but seeing as we're on the authentication strength path, I think it's better to enforce modern MFA, don't you? Click on select, set this to on, and click on create. That is our third policy created. Just hit refresh. Next policy, new policy. Let's give this one a name. Okay, all users device code flow block access. What does this mean? Well, we're going to block something called device code flow. Imagine there's an app or a device that doesn't show you a proper login page. Instead, it says things like, go to this website and type in this code. You sometimes get it with smart TVs or printers or something like that. It sounds really handy, but cybercriminals absolutely love it because they can trick staff into typing in that code and suddenly the attacker can have access to your data. Now, most businesses, they don't need this, so we can block it and we're shutting down a whole class of phishing attacks with almost no impact really on end users. So it's worth having. Again, let's apply this to all users. Let's exclude my account. Click on here, click on select. Okay, go to target resources. We will all resources. This time into conditions, authentication flows. Let's switch this on. Let's device code flow, select that. Click on save. Go to grant access, but click on block access. Click on select. Switch our policy on. We've now got 4, just click refresh, of our policies. Okay, now onto the 5th and final policy. Let's give it a name. Okay, it's quite a long one, this. It's all users, all apps, high sign-in risk, block access. What is this? Now, it's a little bit different from the other 4 policies. Blocking high-risk sign-ins uses something called Microsoft Entra ID protection. What the feature does is checks every login in real time and scores it for a risk. It checks things like whether the user's password has appeared in a breach or if the sign-in is coming from a strange location. So it's really useful to have. The catch is it needs more than Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Okay, it needs something called Entra ID P2. So it's an additional cost. Or if you're using Microsoft 365 E5, it's included in that as well. But if you're just using Microsoft Business Premium, that only includes Entra ID P1, and so you won't get this option. So that's why it's a bonus policy. If you've not got anything more than Business Premium and you just have the other 4 conditional access policies, that's an ideal baseline as well. But I think this is really worth having. Again, users, all users. Let me exclude my man, which is me. Click on here. Target resources. All cloud apps. Conditions. Sign-in risk. Click yes. And then you've got these here. So we definitely want to include high. So if Microsoft think that this is a high risk, we want to block it. If you want a broader check, a broader block, you can choose medium as well. Obviously, you might have more users getting blocked, okay? But that's up to you. I will leave it as this for now, okay? Click on done. We will go to access controls. We will block access. So anyone who is appearing as high risk, we're going to block, okay? Click on select, switch that on, click on create. Bit of a refresh. And there we have it. So this is our baseline. We've got 5 simple but powerful policies to get conditional access working for you. Firstly, our users are requiring strong MFA. We've blocked all legacy authentication protocols. If anybody tries to join or register a device to Microsoft 365, we need strong MFA. We've blocked device code flow, and we're blocking high-risk sign-ins. With just those 5, you've already closed some of the biggest gaps attackers use to get into Microsoft 365. But here's the thing. Not everyone in your business has the same risk profile. We've got admins who need stricter rules. We've got staff who might need a balance of security and flexibility. And we've also got guests to consider. And in these policies, as you can see, we've just assigned them to all users. That is where personas come in. And we're going to take a look at those in the next section. So far, we've built global policies. That is rules that apply to everyone. That's a good start, but it's simply not enough. The truth is, not everyone in your business has the same risk profile. We've got admins, we've got staff, we've got contractors, we've got guests. They all need different levels of protection. This is where personas come in. Now, a persona is just a way of grouping users who share the same security needs. Now, personas aren't security solve. Think of them as the next step up from your baseline, giving you the flexibility to tune your conditional access to your organization. Let's take a look. Now, Microsoft doesn't give you a special persona button, okay? Personas are really just groups in Entra ID. So if I have a look at all my groups now, you can see I've created 4 groups here. We've got conditional access admins, break glass, guests, and staff. So I've put CA at the start so I know these groups have got to do with conditional access. So the whole point here is when we build out conditional access policies, we're targeting these groups. It makes things much easier. Now, these are just static groups at the moment, so what we've got to do is manually add people into these groups. But what you can do when you get a bit more clever is you can start using dynamic groups. So you could change the conditional access staff group, for example, into a dynamic group. And based on the query, people will automatically go into that group, okay? But for now, I'm just using static ones. So with this in mind, let's head back over to conditional access, onto our policies. I'm going to start with the first persona, which is admins, okay? So I'm going to create a new policy now. We're going to give this a name. Okay, here we are. So this is our group, admins. We're targeting that group. All apps require phish-resistant MFA. Admins, of course, are your highest risk users. If their account gets compromised, the attackers basically own your tenant. So we're not interested in standard MFA. We're not even interested in modern MFA for admins. We want the highest one, which is, of course, phish-resistant MFA. Things like FIDO2 keys and things like that. When we go into here now, we're going to select users and groups, and we're going to choose our admin group, okay? What I'm also going to introduce you now to is the exclusions. All my policies, I'm going to exclude my break glass account. So this one here, conditional access, break glass, okay? So this group is going to be excluded from any conditional access policies, okay? It will probably contain only one account, and that will be a global admin account. And it's our break glass account, as the name suggests, okay? It will probably contain a strong password, phish-resistant MFA with a YubiKey locked away in a cupboard. Again, we're going to target all resources. And for this, it's going to be another authentication strength, but this time we're going to go towards a phish-resistant MFA, okay? I will click on select, and I will create that policy. I'm just going to create this in report only for now. Refresh that page as well. And here's my policy here. Now you might be wondering now, hang on a second. I've already got a policy targeting all users that says that they must have strong MFA. Surely the admin accounts are covered by that because that's all users. And now I've added this account specifically for admins. Well, you're quite right, and this is how conditional access works. If a user is in multiple groups, all the policies will apply together. However, the stricter policy will win. So in this case, admins are forced to use the stricter policy, which is phish-resistant MFA, while regular staff can carry on using the strong MFA. And I suppose that's the beauty of using personas with conditional access. You can really fine-tune security without watering it down for the high-risk users, okay? Now, I'm going to create another policy for my admins because they are my most privileged users. I'll give this a name. Okay, this is a long one. Let's go back to the start. Say admins accessing all apps, and we require a company-owned compliant device. Okay, these are admin users. I want them to be accessing my data on a device that I trust, that is company owned, and I know it's compliant with my security policies. Okay, so again, I will do the groupings, which you should know by now. I will select my admins group. There we go. I'm going to exclude my break glass. Click on that. Target resources is all resources. This time I'm going to go into conditions. Okay, I'm going to filter for devices. So configure yes. Include filtered devices in this policy. Device ownership equals company owned. So I'm including these devices in my policy. Click on done. Grant controls. Yes, we will grant access, but I want the device to be marked as compliant as well. So I'm targeting all admins. I'm excluding my break glass. We are looking at company-owned devices. We're going to grant access on those company-owned devices, and we also require the device to be marked as compliant. So that is perfect for my admins. Again, these are admins, so I want to proceed with that. I don't want to exclude any device types. Click on refresh, and there we've got our new policy. Okay, now I'm going to move on to something else. I'm going to move on to the staff group, okay? So at the moment, what we've got are admin users. They have to use phish-resistant MFA. They have to use a company-owned device and a compliant device. What about general staff? So at the moment, general staff are benefiting from all these, but we've not really got anything in place when it comes to devices. So let's create one for those. New policy, give it a name. Okay, require company compliant device. Now you might be wondering, well, hang on a second, that's the same as the other one. I'll just fill it in and I'll explain. So I will choose my CA staff for this. Again, I will exclude my break glass account, which is here. Again, we're going to target our resources. Again, we're going to filter these devices. Yes, including this device ownership equals company. Done. Grant controls, grant access, required marked as compliance. I will exclude those from here at the moment because we would have a separate policy for things like smartphones, okay? Click on there. Refresh. Okay. So these are the same policies, tags in different groups. Why wouldn't we just create an all users here? Well, for me, it's all about clarity and flexibility. I can look at this list now and I can see all the policies that are applying to staff, all the policies that are applying to admins. By keeping them separate, I can maybe change one without affecting the other. So I might want to make a change to staff and it's not going to affect the higher admin users. Okay, so even though they are the same policy targeting different groups, I prefer two different policies. And you might have people out there who says, well, I prefer one. And that's the beauty of conditional access policies. It is a bit of a blank canvas, but I prefer to do it this way. Okay, for completeness, let's now set up a policy targeting guests. Now, this section of the video isn't really my recommended policies for different personas, okay? It's purely to show you how setting up personas can have a really good effect on your conditional access policies. So when it comes to guests, I might set up policies like preventing guests from accessing SharePoint and OneDrive locally on their devices. I might guide them towards web access and things like that. But for this section, let me just set up a policy. We'll call it this, okay? CA guests, all apps, block mobile and device apps. I suppose one of the biggest risks with guests is them connecting their phones to your tenants. Suddenly your company email and files can be synced to their personal unmanaged devices. So this is a bit of a neat trick. We're going to create a conditional access policy for guests. We're going to target all cloud apps, and then under client apps, I'll block mobile and desktop clients. So let's look at the targets. We will select the users and groups, choose guests from here, target resources, all cloud apps, conditions, client apps. We'll switch this on. We'll uncheck browser, click done, and then we will block access this way. Okay, let's select report only, and we will create that policy. Hit refresh. And so that's personas. We've got admins who get locked down the hardest. We've got staff who still have some quite strict policies, but a bit lighter when it comes to MFA. We've got some guest things going on as well. Again, if this was a real scenario, I'd be doing more about their devices. And of course, I've introduced you to the break glass as well. Remember, personas don't solve security on their own. They're just a really good way to organize conditional access so it can scale. But also, what happens when real life happens? You know, you've got maybe someone losing their phone or they need temporary access on their personal laptop. These things happen all of the time. And that is where something called exclusions come in. And that is what we're going to look at in the next section. Now, here's the catch with conditional access. Real life is messy. I mean, my life's messy. Is yours? You've got someone losing their phone. Someone's laptop dies. A director insists on checking email whilst traveling. So you're always going to get asked for exceptions. The mistake I see all of the time is IT admins just throwing users into a permanent exclusion group. 6 months later, nobody remembers why they're excluded. And that account is a massive security hole. So in the next part of the video, we're going to look at a couple of better ways to handle exceptions securely. Let's go. Okay, so the first option we're going to look at is called Temporary Access Pass, or TAP for short. So we've got all these lovely policies in place. But then one day we get a call from the chief executive who has left his phone at home and he can't log in because he's got no multi-factor authentication device. Okay. We know it's the chief executive. So what do we do? Well, I've seen this so many times. We might go into here and we might just go into here and we might say, well, okay, I'm going to exclude your account from this policy. You've left your phone at home. Let's get you logged in. And then what happens? We forget about the exclusion. And so the chief executive stays in the exclusion. Okay, so effectively, he doesn't need strong MFA. He doesn't need MFA to log on to his account. That's not a great way to do it. The best way to do it is by using temporary access passwords. Okay. You might remember when we set up the modern MFA, we included the temporary access passwords in that. If I go to authentication methods here, you can see temporary access pass is enabled for all users. So that's good. So let's play this through. We've got a user called Charles Bell, okay? And he's called us up as the chief executive. He can't log in. He's left his phone at home. That's a big problem. But what I can do, I can simply go into his account here. I've verified it's Charles. I know for definite it is. So I go into his account. I go down to authentication methods. And you can see Charles actually got a FIDO2 key, okay? So maybe he's left his YubiKey at home. What I can do is add an authentication method, and I can say to Charles, I'm going to create you a temporary access pass, okay? We can delay the start time. We can set this so it's a one-time use. So Charles Bell can only use this password once, and then the password is gone forever. I can click on add. The temporary access password is listed there. So let's go to the login screen for Charles. Okay, here he is. Charles is now going to put his email address in here. And then if we go back to Entra, I will copy this temporary access password, go back to here and say to Charles, put your temporary access password in here. This is defaulted to this now because I've created a tap in the back end. Charles pumps that into there. There you go, look. Click sign in. And Charles has now logged in without using his multi-factor authentication. However, we've not excluded him from any conditional access. And that temporary access password, because we set it as a one-time use, that's now gone forever. It'll never work again. So that's the first workaround when it comes to real-life problems. Okay, so that's a nice way around that. The next thing I want to talk about is something called access reviews. So we've got an exclusion group. We've got a break glass exclusion group. And there might be a temptation that if Charles calls up, someone might shove him into that account. Okay, so how can we put something in place so at least these exclusion groups get reviewed periodically? Well, there is something within 365. Now, the thing I'm going to show you now, it's one of those features that's not included in Microsoft 365 Business Premium. They are called access reviews. And again, it's included in Entra ID P2. I'm going to show you it anyway. So within here, ID governance, these are called access reviews. Okay, so I can create an access review. What do we want to review? Teams and groups. I'm going to select the team and group. So I want to periodically review this to make sure that no one's crept in there that needs to be in there. Okay, all users. Click on next, reviews. So we've got first stage review, second stage reviews. We've got multiple people. just for the demo, I'm going to select this. Selected user or group. We're going to just select that Charles Bell, as the owner of the company, is going to review this. We're going to do this on a monthly basis. And it's going to last for 6 days. So Charles has 6 days to do it. We don't want to end it. Click on settings. We've got some more settings we can apply here. So if the reviewer, if Charles Bell doesn't respond, we can remove people's access if we want. We can take recommendations. We can approve access. No change. We can enable reviewer decision helpers. So we can say, well, this person is part of this group, but he's not logged in for 30 days. Okay, that might help Charles make his decision. Charles then has to give justifications, okay, why that person is still in there. We've got email notifications. We've got a lot of things we can do. And then finally, I can review, I can create a name for this and create it. So if you are using some kind of exclusion groups for your conditional access, it's always better, a bit of a wraparound security. You need an extra license, but create some access reviews, okay? That way, things aren't going to slip through the net. So that is conditional access in a nutshell. Now, before I go, I just want to loop back and thank today's video sponsor, who is CoreView. Now, today, we've gone through conditional access and how important it is to protect your users and your data in your business. You've seen how to set it up in Microsoft 365, but it can be complex to enforce, especially if you're monitoring policies across multiple tenants, departments, or business units. Fortunately, you can use a tool like CoreView and make it just a little bit easier. If you want more information, check out the link in the description. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Look forward to seeing you guys soon.